Excel for Chapter 5. So Chapter 5, our present value chapter, so I just got this screen open on our class under Resources right here, and I'm just looking at the Unit 4, Chapter 5 stuff. So there's the PowerPoint, and then there's 4 different Excel files. These are all Excels. These four, I already have them open, but I just wanted everybody to see where they came from. Let me get to, this is the Excel one, or I'm sorry, the amortization one. Let me say that right. This Excel builds an amortization table for you. What I can do is up here in the blue, I set it on the numbers that were used in the PowerPoint. The last few pages of the PowerPoint showed us how to do this more mechanically, kind of the mechanics of how to figure it out. But I like Excel. It's very easy to use, and so I can build almost any amortization table that I want to here with this. So I can just change the number of 3 to, I can change it to 30 if I wanted to. I can change the interest rate to anything that I want to. I can change the amount borrowed to anything that I want to. So as I change those, it just does that for me, and it builds in the number of periods, it builds in what each payment will be, and it builds, or what the principal and interest is. So the payment, now this doesn't sum these two up, but it's always the same. So if I add those two cells up right here, it's 8,882, and every time I add those two up, I get, whoops, did not mean to scroll all the way down there, I get the exact same answer. So bear with me here while this scrolls up. I'm using my Mac to record these. I'm not quite as good with Excel on my Mac as I am with Windows. But anyway, if I sum those two, I get the 8,882. So my payment in this scenario of 30 payments, $100,000, 8%, each payment would be $8,882. And you can see how the balance of the loan changes, go all the way down to 0. Notice that interest payment starts out really high but goes down. The principal payment starts out low but goes up over time. So that's a typical amortization schedule. Just want everybody to see that as an example of one to use if you are doing these in Applia. So I'm just going to close this one. The next one, actually I'm going to not show you that one quite yet. This one right here I want to show you. This one is factors. Now another way to compute present value and future value that is not mentioned in the PowerPoints, and I think it's just kind of briefly mentioned in the chapter, is you can use factors to do it. So all you have to do with a factor table is figure out, first of all, am I looking at future value, present value, and then is it future or present value of a lump sum or of an annuity? And once I know which table to look at, I choose the table. Let's just say I've got future value of a lump sum right here. And then what I do is I line up the interest. Let's just say I'm looking at a 10% factor, and I'm look at this for 5 years. I'm sorry, for 3 years, and I use 1.331. So I take whatever my money is. If it's, let's just say I want to know the future value of $100 at 10% for 3 years, I'd multiply it by 1.331, and I'd get my answer to be $133.10. So that's one way to do it, is just use factors. Now we're not going to really use those in what we're doing, but I just wanted you to be aware of those. So it's the only reason I included that. Okay, so let me get to what's left for Excel, and you can see here that this one, actually I forgot to open the textbook Excel. We'll come back to that one. So this is the one that you can use to do the problems in Applia. And I put this together. It has all the different Excel formulas that you will need are here. And anything in blue is your inputs, anything in black is your output. And so I've got it organized by type of formula: present value of ordinary annuity, future value ordinary, future value of an amount, then over here present value of an annuity due, future value of an annuity due, present value of an amount, solving for N, solving for I, solving for PMT, and computing the effective rate of interest. So these are all the formulas that we showed in the PowerPoint. These are the formulas that you'll use to do your work in Applia. So for example, over here, let me just click on this here just so you can see the parts of the formula. And it even shows us present value of an ordinary annuity. And so it says the rate is E7, NPER is the E8, and then payment is E4, or E5, if we can say that right, and then the future value, which happens to be nothing in this example, and the type, and this was an ordinary annuity, so the type is set at 0 in my formula. The type is 0. Okay, so if I look at the same thing for an annuity due right here, that type is a 1 for the annuity due. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So you want to look at those, and then solving for n right here, just make sure that when you do these, I should mention too that if you just do a present value formula or future value formula, you get a negative answer, which is kind of goofy. So my formula says times -1 to prevent that from happening, times -1 at the end, which it does here also, times -1. So down here when you solve for the number of periods, you have to enter your present value as a negative number, your future value as a positive number, whatever the interest rate involved is, and that will give you then the number of periods. So basically the way to think about this is if I had today 36.50 and it doubles, grows to 73 at 2% interest rate, how long did that take? How many periods did that take for that to double at 2%? And it took 35 periods. Okay, and you'll have some problems like that in Aplia where you're going to be given some dollar amounts and you have to basically say this amount went from this amount today to this amount in the future at X interest rate. What is the number of periods? Solve for that. Solve for interest kind of works the same way. My future value 2,000, my present value is 1,000. This happened over 5 years. It went from 1,000 to 2,000. What rate of interest made it double over that 5-year period? And the answer would be 14.87%. Okay, you can solve for the payment. Kind of the same thing. It's the PMT formula. There we go. And so PMT is taking the present value today, and it's saying the interest rate, the number of periods. What's my payment to make that go to the appropriate amount? So payment would be one to look at. And over here is the effective interest rate formula, the EFF formula. And what you can do is, remember that if I set this at 1, so 1 is where the nominal rate and the effective rate are the same. Let me set that on 4% just because that's what the book used. So, or the PowerPoint used. When we looked at this in the PowerPoint, whenever we used 1, an annual rate, the nominal rate and the effective rate are the same when the number of compounding periods is 1. And so we get 4%. But as soon as I change that, so if it becomes semi-annual, so I'm going to put in 2 for the number of periods, it becomes 4.04. If it becomes quarterly, it becomes 4.06. If it becomes monthly, it becomes 4.07. And if it becomes daily, we use 360, and we get 4.08. There was a PowerPoint that listed all those numbers based on what we used right there. So just wanted you to see that so that you can use these Excel formulas to compute your Aplia problems. Now, you can't ever break these formulas. If you happen just to goof it up and mess them up, just go reopen a fresh file. That's all you got to do. So don't worry about playing around with this. You can't break it. Every time you use it, just save it somewhere. And if you happen to overwrite a formula by accident or whatever, all you got to do is come back here and open up the file. And it was the BUS 305 FV and PV calculations file. The one I forgot to open was this one right here. So let's open this one up. So bear with me while I do that. I thought I had it open before I started the recording. So here it is right here. So take a look at this one as you always should with all of these, and I will always show them to you. Let me get it larger here. There we go. Slowly. I have a very old Mac, so it's not super fast. So this just shows you then all kinds of examples, and a lot of these are in the book. There's the exact same pictures of these are in the book. And what's nice about looking at these ones is it shows you the timeline, and it shows you how to build the Excel from scratch, the Excel formula from scratch. And it also shows you, if you're using the calculators, what the keys are. So I kind of like it just because it shows you all the different methods right here. And it shows you, if you built the future value formula from scratch in Excel, you get this screen. And you can just tell it to pick up the appropriate items from the appropriate cells, which is what this is doing. And they've got the Excel actual formula, then it's just right here. So if I double click on that, you can just see it's just grabbing all these different cells to grab information. So that's what this does, and it's showing us compounding. The more often we compound, the more something grows. They're showing us that. And then for future values and present values, they kind of do the same thing. So they're going to show us kind of the same story that they did for future value down here for present value. So the Excel approach, the timeline approach, and the calculator approach are all right here. And so they're kind of showing us graphically then how to do some discounting and how things change based on interest rates. Okay, they show us finding the interest rate, they show us the formula, and everything else down here too. So just different ways to use these Excels, just more informational, and this is what you see when you read the chapter. This is what's in there. And I should mention about these too, really open up Excel on your own computers and just take a look at these, and I think you'll find it useful. Now they're doing the whole thing for annuities, for ordinary annuities and annuity dues. They show us future value and present value for both. So it's kind of what I showed you in my other Excel also. I just clicked on the second tab here, 5.2, 5.3. So as you read the chapter and go through and look at it, they do little self-tests within the chapter. So they show you a concept, and they give you a short self-test, for example. And the answers for those short tests are always on these Excels. And I forgot to mention that in previous versions of the Excels, but this is the chapter where that first, to me, kind of becomes more important than any previous chapter. So for example, there's a self-test on page 151 of your chapter, and this has the answer to it. So this is how you come up with it right there. They show it to you in Excel. So that might be useful to you as you're learning these concepts and trying to figure them out. I think you'll find that very, very useful. The last thing I want to mention, I'm going to go back to our class, and I'm just going to click on coursework here and just show everybody what to do here for chapters 4 and 5 this upcoming week. Right here. So what's coming up is Unit 3, which is chapters 4 and 5. So I want everybody to see that. So there's a quiz, there's the problems, the engagement activity, which are really easy. The quizzes, which are 10 questions with a half-an-hour time limit. They're always true and false. And the tests are not very long. I've given you a 2-hour time limit for the test for each chapter. However, you'll probably get done much quicker than that. The tests are mostly concept-based. There will be a little bit of number crunching in the tests. I try to keep most of the number crunching to the actual, just the homework that's due every week. But the tests are more concept-based. But just by doing the homework and reviewing the terminology, reviewing the review questions at the end of the chapter, that will definitely get you ready for the tests for each. But before you launch the test, have your book open. If you're using the ebook, you might want the ebook open on a different device than you're doing the homework on. Have a piece of paper, scratch paper, pencil, calculator just in case, or have Excel open if you need a quick calculation. You won't need many calculations on any of the tests throughout the class. So just have those things open and ready for you as you begin to dive into the material, and I think that will help you quite a bit in terms of learning it just a little bit better. As always, if you have questions, just let me know. Thanks.